This is News Bits on Fusion TV. Here are the headlines. Protests continue in Nigeria, marking 1 month of Chibok girls' kidnapping. U.S. President Barack Obama sanctions 5 in Central African Republic. Elections postponed in South Sudan. 274 dead in mine explosion in Turkey. Death toll continues to rise. Ukraine holds national unity talks. These and more when we return. Stay tuned. We'll be back in a moment. Hello and thanks for joining me on this edition of News Bits. I'm Nike Roberts. The Middle Eastern Respiratory Syndrome, MERS virus, first reported in Saudi Arabia in 2012, has now spread to 18 countries, including the United States. 2 United States health workers in Indiana and Florida who were exposed to the virus in Saudi Arabia fell ill, but tested negative for MERS. The deadly virus presents symptoms similar to cold, like coughing, fever, shortness of breath, and has similar traits to the SARS virus. There have been over 500 cases of MERS worldwide, and 30% of those carrying the virus have died. The Center for Disease Control, CDC, has said that the disease likely originated from an animal because strains of the virus have been found in camels and bats in the Middle East. The CDC also says that it is working with other health agencies to prepare for any future cases. The World Health Organization, WHO, says that MERS is serious and countries should take measures to curb its spread, but it is not an emergency because there is no evidence of sustained human-to-human transference of the virus. A judge has ordered Oscar Pistorius to undergo a psychiatric evaluation, putting the trial on hold for about a month. The tests will be done to determine if Pistorius suffers from a general anxiety disorder. This order comes after testimony of a psychiatrist that Pistorius has suffered from generalized anxiety disorder since he was an infant, stemming partly from the amputation of both his lower legs, and that his actions may have been affected by the disorder on the night he shot and killed his girlfriend, Riva Steenkamp. Judge Masipa suggested that Pistorius is not mandated to spend nights at the psychiatric facility and could be an outpatient. If Pistorius is diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder after the 30-day evaluation, his culpability in the death of his girlfriend on Valentine's Day of 2013 will be reduced. Strangely, the defense was against the psychiatric evaluation, stating it was a ploy by the prosecution to get a second psychiatric opinion. 42 people are left dead after a Yemeni army offense against Islamic militants on Wednesday. The streets were flooded with families taking flight from demolished homes and cars set ablaze, and the streets were littered with dead bodies in the aftermath of fighting between the Yemen army and al-Qaeda militants. The terrorists tried to retake the town of Azan in Shabwa province, but were engaged for hours by government warplanes bombing the militants hiding in homes. At least 30 al-Qaeda militants and 12 military officials are dead after the skirmishes. It is not yet clear if civilians were harmed. Residents of Ran in the northern state of Borno in Nigeria on Tuesday reportedly were able to repel Boko Haram attacks. Villagers in an area frequently plagued by Boko Haram attacks detained 10 and killed about 41 militants, assumed to have been planning fresh attacks. The villagers took matters into their hands after hearing rumors about an impending attack and ensnared 2 trucks with gunmen. The villagers believe the Nigerian government is not doing enough. American drones have begun to search areas of northern Nigeria where the girls are believed to have been taken about a month ago by Boko Haram. In a video released on Monday, Boko Haram leader Abubakar Shekau said he would release the girls in exchange for Boko Haram prisoners being held by the Nigerian government. However, the Nigerian government on Tuesday rejected the idea of negotiating with Boko Haram. A senior U.S. State Department official said the girls had not been located yet and that a 1997 law known as the Leahy Amendment is complicating the joint effort with Nigerian forces. The Leahy Amendment bars U.S. forces from working with militaries or units accused of chronic human rights violations. Furthermore, the 30 U.S. personnel that are on ground in Nigeria are there primarily to give logistical and technical support, particularly on communications with the Nigerian people and with neighboring countries. Meanwhile, protesters in Lagos, Nigeria's most populous city, defied heavy rains on Wednesday to March, marking the one-month anniversary of the Chibok schoolgirls' kidnapping. Women and human rights activists turned out in large numbers at the protest. One of the activists stated, "It's about protecting the whole country. These girls are a symbol of that," adding that we are putting our foot down and saying enough is enough. U.S. President Barack Obama has ordered sanctions against 5 top figures in the Central African Republic, including former President Francois Bozize and rebel leader Michel Djotodia. The executive order was issued on Tuesday, citing a breakdown of law and order in the Central African Republic, along with the recruitment of child soldiers and atrocities against civilians, including rape, kidnappings, and attacks on schools and hospitals. U.S. assets belonging to the 5 officials have been frozen and a travel ban placed on the named individuals. This followed UN Security Council sanctions on Friday on Bozize, who is an anti-Balaka supporter, Nuruddin Adam, a Seleka general and a former Minister of Public Security, and Levi Yakete, an anti-Balaka leader. The Central African Republic sank into chaos last year when Muslim rebels led by Michel Djotodia overthrew President Bozize. The violence has killed more than 1,000 civilians and created a humanitarian disaster in the Central African Republic. Formal agreements for plans to build a new railway line in East Africa with Chinese help have been concluded. These and more when we return. Stay tuned, we'll be back in a moment. Formal arrangements for plans to build a new railway line in East Africa with Chinese help have been signed in the Kenyan capital, Nairobi. The railway line will run from Mombasa to Nairobi and will extend eventually to Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, and South Sudan. It will replace a narrow-gauge track built more than 100 years ago during British colonial rule. China is to finance 90% of the first stage, with the work carried out by a Chinese firm. Construction work is expected to start in October, and the 380-mile stretch from the coast to Nairobi is due to be finished in early 2018. Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta is confident that the cost of moving people and goods across borders will fall sharply. He was speaking at a news conference following the signing, which was also attended by the leaders of China, Uganda, Rwanda, and South Sudan, and representatives from Tanzania, Burundi, and the African Development Bank. South Sudan has postponed presidential elections due next year to give government and rebel forces more time to achieve reconciliation. President Salva Kiir has said. Mr. Kiir and rebel leader Riek Machar signed a ceasefire deal on Friday to end conflict that erupted in December. Mr. Kiir said an interim government would run South Sudan until elections are held in 2017 or 2018. Thousands of people have been killed in the fighting. The UN has accused both sides of crimes against humanity, including mass killings and gang rape. Fighting broke out in December after Mr. Kiir accused Mr. Machar, his deputy, of plotting a coup. Mr. Machar denied the allegation, but then assembled a rebel army and called for the overthrow of the government. Mr. Kiir and Mr. Machar signed a peace deal in Ethiopia on Friday, the second since fighting broke out. Ukrainian leaders have launched national unity talks aimed at diffusing the biggest crisis the country has faced in its modern history. The talks opened in Kiev Wednesday, a day after pro-Russian separatists killed 7 government soldiers in the country's east, and amid unconfirmed reports of fresh violence. National lawmakers and regional officials, religious leaders, and civic activists are attending the talks as part of a roadmap laid out by the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. The OSCE plan calls on both the Ukrainian government and the separatists to refrain from violence. It also seeks immediate amnesty for those involved in the fighting and talks on decentralizing the country's political system and on the status of the Russian language. The separatist rebels are not represented, raising doubts about the validity of negotiations. At the talks, acting Ukrainian President Alexander Tokinov sent a firm message to the rebels, saying Kiev would listen but would not bow to blackmail. 274 people are dead and at least 120 more still missing after a power transformer blew up on Tuesday during shift change at a mine in the western Turkish town of Soma. 88 people were rescued immediately after the explosion. Prime Minister Recep Erdogan has ordered 3 days of mourning. Rescuers are hoping that some miners reached emergency chambers stocked with gas masks and air, ensuring their possible survival. This will be the worst mine disaster in Turkish history. Since Abdel Fattah al-Sisi took over as de facto leader after ousting an Islamic leader, Mohamed Morsi, last year in Egypt, relations between Israel and Egypt have improved and are projected to continuously improve after his expected election as president. Al-Sisi said that the relationship between Egypt and Israel is strong for the time being and in the foreseeable future. MedShare, a non-profit organization dedicated to improving the health care of the less privileged, celebrated a major milestone this week. MedShare collects medical supplies and equipment from hospitals, distributors, and manufacturers, and then redistributes to healthcare facilities in developing countries. MedShare celebrated its 100th shipment to Nigeria and its 1,000th overall shipment. Fuxion TV was there, and here are some of the highlights of the event.
We're here today celebrating a couple of monumental milestones in our history. We've been around for 15 years, and today we're celebrating our 1,000th container shipped worldwide, and we're also celebrating our 100th container shipped to Nigeria. Our goal this year is to ship 111 containers worldwide. We're hoping to equal that or surpass that goal next year. And we've been challenged to double the number of containers over the next 5 years that we've shipped in 15 years. Right, we're located here in DeKalb County in Decatur. We also have locations in the San Francisco Bay Area as well as New York. We're always looking for volunteers to come out. We've used over 18,000 volunteers a year. So please come out and join us, help us sort through all the medical products and get it ready for our recipients to improve their quality of life around the world.
My goal is to create MedShare as a model for corporate social responsibility, to market the program around the world, and to create partnerships in as many places as possible so we'll be able to get the necessary funding to send the medical supplies and equipment throughout the world. And Nigeria in particular has been very important because of the great responses we've gotten from the political leadership as well as the nonprofit sector. The 1,000th container is going to be going to Guinea. A hospital there is a part of the system that is working on controlling Ebola. And that container is sponsored by the Coca-Cola bottlers.
Well, MedShare is doing a great work. They're taking waste medical supplies that over 2 million tons in the U.S. of medical waste. And they're taking those away from landfills, but also they're turning those waste into useful medical equipment and supplies for people in the developing world, in Africa and Nigeria, Philippines, and over 95 countries. So we applaud them. So this celebration is also a way to help the people on the ground. And MedShare has created a good corporate social responsibility partnership, not just with the corporations, but also with the state governments. So I applaud the state governors in Nigeria and the local government and also the hospital officials in Nigeria, the Ministry of Health people that are receiving MedShare's involvement. And it's going to help the young kids and the people of Nigeria in the very remote areas. We know not everybody lives in big cities in Nigeria, so MedShare helps the people in the city and also the people in the country and in the villages, so we're very excited.
It is impossible to forget the largest terror attack on the United States on September 11, 2001, when hijacked planes crashed into the World Trade Center. resulting in the deaths of 2,983 people. Those not directly affected could only imagine pain of those affected through information given by the media. Now there is an opportunity to further understand the magnitude of the September 11 tragedy and get to know more about the lives, unfortunately cut short on that fateful day. The National September 11 Memorial Museum was dedicated by President Obama, and it had those directly affected, survivors, families of victims, and rescuers present on Thursday at the dedication. The doors will be open to the general public next Wednesday. The museum showcases the personal artifacts of victims. It contains objects that tell a story, like helmets belonging to firefighters, gloves, a mangled fire truck, letters, and thousands of other objects. It is an airplane hangar built on Ground Zero, a relic containing 12,500 recovered objects and 580 hours of video and film. There are 2 granite pools where the Twin Towers once stood, meant to be a solemn place of mourning. The museum will be a place to always remember where America has been and where it's headed. Christopher Columbus's Santa Maria may have been found. An explorer, Barry Clifford, claims to have found the ship that Christopher Columbus sailed into the Americas. Clifford says he found the wreckage of Columbus's flagship in the Haitian waters and is confident it's the right one, based on comparisons between the wreckage and notes from Columbus's diary. He, however, stated that the flagship may have been looted by pirates. Clifford and his son originally found the wreckage in 2003, 15 feet from where a settlement was built for those who survived the sinking of the ship on Christmas Day in 1492. When Clifford and his son returned last week, a cannon said to have matched the cannon in Columbus's diary was missing. And if this is in fact the Santa Maria, Barry Clifford's name will forever be remembered in history. Well, that's all the news bits we have for you this week on Fuxion TV. Thank you for sticking with us. We'll see you again next time. Until then, stay safe.